The government says it's committed to bringing child abusers to account. But what happens when it's the state who's the abuser? Former State Ward Carl Tody says his childhood spent in state care trained him only for a life of crime and violence. He says the government needs to own up to the impact it had on him and hundreds of other Māori boys who were locked up as children. Carl shared his story with Carmen Parahi.
It was just violent. And I've called it mind rape of a child. It's time state put their hands up for the crimes that were committed against us.
The hard knocks on this field are nothing compared to the childhood experiences Carl Tody has spent a lifetime struggling with.
Get a bit of attitude in here, let's go.
He's a man with a dark past, filled with crime and violence he's using to inspire these boys to choose a different, much brighter future.
And I can share all the bad things that I've been through and hopefully help them out in their lives.
For the past 2 decades and without any funding, Carl and his family have gathered troubled youth together to play rugby league with the Awa Kairangi, a Hutt Valley Wellington team that competes at the Māori Rugby League tournament every year.
You've got to talk on the D. If you're not talking, you're going to be on the bench. Sweet? Yep. All right, let's go.
Carl coaches these boys to help him deal with the abuse he's suffered growing up in state care.
Stop, hands, easy, stop.
It's made Carl the man he is today.
I call it the dark times. The dark times is sitting on your own wondering, where's my family? Why am I on my own?
Carl's family are here, memorialised inside Pukeatua Meeting House in Wainuiomata. It's the first time Carl's ever spoken about being a state ward in front of his parents. He doesn't blame them for what happened to him when he was a boy. Those painful memories soon overwhelm him.
I experienced hidings, physical abuse. The worst for me is the mental abuse.
Carl is one of 18 Tody children who grew up in Wainuiomata. What happened to Carl is typical of many children born into large urban Māori families during the 1950s through to the 80s. If authorities believed a child was poorly supervised at home and displayed what they called delinquent behaviour, they would remove the child and place them into state welfare homes. Carl was just 11 when he was sent to the Epuni Boys' Home in Lower Hutt for petty crimes like stealing a chocolate bar.
When a kid came into Epuni Boys' Home, you'd always be stomped. They'd fill up their pillowcases with boots and they'd go around and give you a bit of a battering. It was just violent. You felt it, you smelt it, you lived it, you knew it.
Carl spent just 3 months in Epuni, but it was enough time to damage him forever.
You sat in a concrete room on your own as a child. Now that's mind rape, as far as I'm concerned.
Carl's behaviour got worse after Epuni, and he eventually became a ward of the state. He lived in 4 boys' homes and a borstal until he was 17. It's estimated more than 100,000, mostly Māori children, went through the residential care system and 8,000 through the Epuni Boys' Home in Lower Hutt. At Kohitere Training Centre in Levin, a 14-year-old Carl spent 3 weeks in solitary lockdown for 23 hours a day.
I was so lonely one time I'd start bashing my head against the wall, trying to break my nose, trying to get the blood to run so I could get somebody to come in and try and talk to me, so I could get some kind of attention.
We took Carl back to Epuni for the first time in 40 years. So what was it like when you were here?
Oh, from the minute I got to the Epuni Boys' Home, I could feel I was scared. Scared when I came in here with the police. Scared when I seen the faces of the many boys looking out the window. From every day that I was here, I hated it. the fear in here, The violence in here for me was really, really hard to handle. You got to remember I was only a child at the time. I hate the place. I hate being here. I hated the memories of being here. Yeah, being away from my mum and dad, my family. It's tough.
So it's been over 40 years since you were here, and yet it looks like you're starting to get all those memories back.
They don't go. It's important for my wife and my kids. Not only that, for all the families anyway, that have been hurt from this place anyway, so it's very important. Yep.
Epuni's staff came out to check on us and spoke briefly with Carl.
Because when I can remember being in there, right, where, for me, violence in there, and just the actual, the aura was ugly. Has it changed in there?
It certainly has. We have girls in here now too, which has made a difference.
Carl was surprised that it was still open as a facility?
Yeah, I was. And still working with youth. I was very surprised after everything that happened over the years. I thought they would have shut it.
Well,
oh, that's just being honest with you.
No, I understand, but the focus has changed.
I thought it would have been closed for the hurts of all the kids. It actually should have been, they should have been demolished, to be honest. Evidence with me, it clearly shows that this place was very hurting for us. So yeah, I'm surprised that it's still here.
As part of Carl's healing, he wrote down his memoirs to try to understand what happened to him when he was a child.
If you're brought up as a criminal, you're going to be a criminal. If you're brought up violent, you're going to be brought up violent. And you're going to actually ricochet it for your kids. Many of my friends have done that. And I've got some friends, I still have friends in that area, and I love them. But I'm speaking out because I want them to hear, understand. We're hurting our kids. We're hurting our moho. And we need to get the word out there to the public. Hold on, Taiho. Just maybe a lot of the violence that are coming from Māori is not Māoris.
Another part of Carl's healing was to join a class action with other former state wards against the Ministry of Social Development for the abuse and violence they claim happened in care.
A lot of people have said that a lot of the complainants, they are criminals, they're fraudsters, they're just after the money.
Oh, hell no. It may be the case in some of them go, hey, don't get me wrong. We have been criminals over the years. Bloody hell. Don't get me wrong, some fellas would put their hands up for the money, you know, but let's be honest. For me, it's about an understanding. It's about a healing. As a young adolescent, he became involved with the Department of Social Welfare.
In Carl's case, the ministry admitted their guilt.
Any child or young person in your situation had a right to be cared for safely and compassionately.
He received $10,000 redress and a written apology.
There's also evidence that you were let down and failed by us.
But the ministry hasn't accepted any criminal liability.
And formally and reservedly apologise for the failures of the department at that time. I still feel there's a liability. I still feel that there's really no real resolution. You know, when we talk about liability to child abuse, crimes committed against me that have been actually admitted to in a letter of apology, oh, come on. It should be an open forum. It's got to be made public.
So what do you want from the government? They've given you an apology and they've given you some compensation. Isn't that enough?
It's time the state put their hands up for the crimes that were committed against us.
Carl has more than 200 convictions and spent 5 terms in prison. He says a generation of Māori men just like him were created in state care and it impacted badly on Māori today.
If you're brought up in a violent society and a violent culture, obviously it's going to ricochet for your families.
Carl now wants a broad public apology from the government for everyone who suffered while in state care.
My main reason for being here is MSD, government, put your hands up. Put your hands up and say you're sorry. Put your hands up for our kids and our families. And to not give a public apology to all of us, now there's some serious wrongs going on. As you realise and you start to understand that you're here with your tipuna, and you start to realise that they're here, They're right here standing beside you.
The final part of Carl's healing has been developing the Māori cultural practices he started learning in prison.
It's changed my whole life. It's changed me. And I must say, it's going to change a lot of us Māori men, because they need it. A lot of them are getting stuck in this cycle of violence and crime and gangster. It's rubbish.
Carl Tody believes his redemption is on these rugby league fields amongst these boys, using his experiences to help them grow into men.
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, bringing this team together ages ago, just bringing kids off the streets to play. Yeah, so we wouldn't be here without him.
Because of his past, he knows what not to do, and he tells our kids that he doesn't hide it, and our kids love him for it. You know, they want to listen to a man that they respect with mana, and he has mana.
We got 40 kids at training. In fact, almost 20 sets of parents standing at training. And the fathers of those kids were with us in the early days. They saw this uncontrollable Carl, who's now standing there passing on tikanga. And they're allowing me the privilege and the honours to work with their kids. So that says a lot. Yeah, I'm proud of it.
Joining me now in studio is reporter Carmen Parahi. Tēnā koe, Carmen. What's been the response from the Ministry of Social Development to Carl's story?
Yeah, we received a long statement from the Ministry, a long written statement, and the first thing they said was that they found no evidence of systemic failure within the care system. Carl Tody obviously disagrees with that. In a small number of cases, workers were found to have acted inappropriately, and in some isolated cases acted criminally against children, which is not good enough. The Ministry has set up a resolution process which for people who believe they have been abused or suffered in care, which we'll put those details up on our website.
So how many cases are we talking about?
Yeah, we asked for some numbers, some claims numbers, and I was surprised by them actually. So the Ministry has paid out nearly $4 million in claims. 1,015 of those, they have received 1,015 claims. 325 of those have been completed, and just 197 have received apologies and compensation. Most of those claims come from Carl Tody's era, which is from the 60s through to the 80s. The
old shots of Epuni Boys' home look absolutely horrific. Have things changed much? Yeah, definitely. Just from the outside you can see physically the buildings have changed. The Ministry have said lots of things have changed in the care system in the last 40 years since Carl was there. And one of the major things that have changed is the way they deal with children and social welfare work practices and how they deal with children. Yeah. But you saw what happened when we took Carl back there for the first time in 40 years. He wasn't very pleased Epuni was still open. We did ask to take our cameras inside. They said no surprises there. But to their credit, they are, as part of Carl's resolution package, they are going to allow Carl to go back into Epuni and he can find out for himself whether it's changed or not. And what about the broad public apology that Carl's looking for?
Yeah, the Ministry says it deals with cases on an individual basis, which is what happened to Carl, and we've heard his apology, which we will put on full on our website. Our reporter Jodie Ihaka spoke to the Attorney General Chris Finlayson about Carl's plea for a public apology.
Well, I think I've already dealt with it some years ago by saying that I agreed with the principle that anyone who was abused deserved an apology.
Do you accept Carl's argument that the abuse children suffered in state care has led to some of the violence and criminality?
I'm not a criminologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I don't know the answers to those questions. You should direct them to people who are competent to answer.
Is there anything you'd like to say to people like Carl?
Over and above what I've said earlier in this interview, no. Anyone who has been wrong deserves an apology.
So So do you think that's the type of apology Carl's looking for?
No, he's looking for the full public apology to all the children in state care. Finlayson's only apologising to those who can prove they were abused, and that's only 197 people so far.
Ka Parahi tēnā koe, thank you very much.
Kia ora, Scotty.
Mena e māramana koe ki te āhua I pā kia Carl, homai rā te kōrero mou. Ka mutu ki te hiahia koe ki te rapu kōrero anō mō tō take, whakapā atu ki te rōpū tauwhiro tono tatau paunamu o te manatū whakahiato ora. Kei tā mātou whārangi ipurangi, ngā tai pito pito.